Okay. So auto self-driven car is also, let's say, having a lot of like HD cameras and all that, and it can also, uh, capturing a lot of multimedia, audio, video on the road, and at the same time, it might be it could be a thread. It could be help you find and loss. Like if your bike is stolen, car is stolen, it can find it easily, right? It can be a good police help as well, but at the same time it could spy you at any point of time. Like we are very much afraid of nowadays, Google, Alexa, our own laptop camera and all that. We are keeping everything very safe and secure, and maybe so that's where we are jumping in, that how we can make this as a safe place. That's where we are talking about the possibility versus the preferable. So what is the preferable thing? And I think that's where we have a lot of to hear from this today's panel to hear this out. So we are really very excited. Shashank, Kapala, Anil, Karthik, thanks a lot for joining in. And like, how about a quick a round of introduction if you would like to? So, and then we'll quickly jump into the session. Does that make
So
sense?
you want us to introduce ourselves, or you'll introduce?
Yep, I think it would be great that you guys just give your own. You guys don't need it, but it would be great to hearing from you.
Okay. So maybe I can go first, and then I'll let others. So I am Shashank here. I've been to the field of design user experience for last more than 25 years now. I graduated from National Institute of Design, and post that I was running my own consulting company that got acquired by Veritas. Later on, I started another company called Claris Technologies, and in between, I worked with Apala at HFI. So it's been a very entrepreneurial kind of a institutional building kind of a journey that I've had. And I'm going to reflect on my experience today in the talk, or the topic that we have been given today. So so that's sort of a very high level, quick overview and a quick intro. Over to you, Karna.
I think, Kanda, you're on mute.
Sorry. Apala, I think you are the next. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks again for inviting me. And
Thanks for joining in.
I'm delighted. Such an eminent panel of speakers, interesting topics. And I see so many people on today. And of course, as you said, it's a Saturday, though time is so shapeless nowadays. It's like you don't know which day is what. One has to create rituals to mark one day from another. Anyway, so to a very short introduction, I'm Apala, and have been with HFI. I'm co-founder of the Asia Pacific business operations of HFI. And my interest is and has always been in how can design be more inclusive? How can design look into and incorporate differences within cultures, subcultures, and make design, therefore much more accessible and beneficial for not just a small group of people, but for everybody. I also chair the National Design and Innovation Committee for the Internet and Mobile Association of India, and we're trying very hard to see if we can, act as an agency that gets designers, design community, all the design associations who are doing such good work to talk to the government and see how we can all benefit from that association.
That's definitely we are looking forward to to understand.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot, Apala, for joining in. Hey, Karthik, how are you?
I'm good, Karna. How are you?
Great. So why don't you introduce quickly yourself?
Cool. First of all, thanks a lot for having me part of this discussion.
Anytime. It's
Glad to be here around. Hey. Hi, everyone. I am Karthik. I currently lead the design for InMobi since 2014. It's been over 5 years, and it's a good blend of enterprise and also consumer facing problems that we and my team kind of solves for InMobi, especially on the mobile ad tech space. Prior to that, like my journey with design started probably around like early 2000s, when there weren't like titles like interaction designers or UX designers kind of very common in the industry. So we used to have like graphic and web designers kind of. So that's where my journey kind of started with design. Yeah, kind of all self-taught from that time frame. And yeah, it's been like a great journey with InMovie so far, and
Great.
looking forward to kind of hearing from the rest of the panel, and also like share my views on remote team working today.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Karthik.
Thank you, Karna.
Looking forward to. Hey, Anil, how are you?
Hey, Karna, I'm good. Hello, everyone. I'm Anil Reddy, founder and design director at Lollipop. Lollipop is an experience design studio. To a small introduction about myself, I'm an artist by heart and designer by soul and entrepreneur by choice. This is a short introduction of myself. So it used to be really long, then I shortened it. So I started my career as an artist. Then I graduated as a fine art, and I did masters in New Zealand, then worked and lived in New Zealand for almost 11 years. Then I came back in 2012 with an intention of putting India on map for design. So that was a very big dream, and I was not sure how I was going to do that. But I think nature was kind enough to like guide me on the right path. And I'm here today, and fantastic to share this session with you all. And I look forward. And today's my topic is about frugal innovation. So I'm going to share my thoughts about it, and also hear from everyone. Thank you so much, Karna.
Definitely. We also looking forward to. So even just very quick perspective from my end as well. So since we are learning, when I started my very first book or journey, even understanding of UX UI, since then I personally look up to Apala. Then and then like since 2011 when I shifted to Bangalore, that very first connect and understanding happens to with Shashank and Shashank companies called Claris, and like I was also part of Claris, and I'm really proud of, because the kind of team we had and the kind of design journey we had, especially my own learning majority coming from Shashank and Claris for sure. And I think one more guy is also there called Anish Bhuwania in our forum. So he's also been amazing mentor of mine in that throughout the journey so far. Then my like third connection happened firstly with Karthik as a friend, and we started something to think about InMobi and how we can some of the product iterations and ideas and all that. And then we exchanged a lot of thoughts, and we found it looks like we had a good bridge in between understanding. And then Anil, I would say definitely in the current state, whenever design comes first, everybody would like to see where the Lollipop is and how the Lollipop is doing and thinking and the kind of hiring standard and everything. So it's a very amazed, like I must say this, it's very amazed to have you guys as here in panel, and would really looking forward to hear each and every subject. So I think we'll start from Shashank first. So Shashank is been through, likewise he's saying that I'm also seeing him from little longer time as an entrepreneur, but he's fantastic designer, and he would be, I would say, a first version who taught me that how to detail out even data grid, that table that we are looking forward to. So since then he's like a kind of design guru of mine. So why not, Shashank, you start and understand what is the course correction that we can looking forward to in terms of our everyday living moving forward.
So thanks, Karna, and thanks for putting this wonderful panel together. I think the topic is very exciting, and of course, I should thank all the participants who joined in on a Saturday afternoon. I know, and there's so many webinars happening, right? I mean, so this is so I hope we give something for them to take away. So thanks. So what I'm going to do is, of course, this speculative design or speculative practice is a very vast subject. It's there's a lot of body of knowledge that has been collected over last few years. Of course, I'm not going to cover, but I'm going to just focus on few things, the kind of skills and tools that we need to do the course correction. So there's, so what are the tools as a designer, or what are the skills that as a designer that we need to do the necessary course correction? And to do that, I'm going to reflect on my personal journey as well. So if you look at it, I started as a designer where, so for last initial part of my, in the 25 years, initial part of my this thing was I was working as a individual designer, running my own small consulting company. Um, um, and, and and I was interacting with just a very small set of subset of people, which was essentially users, and maybe there's a technology person, etc. But I realized that if I have to extend, then I have to look at the whole aspect of business of design, and that's when I started interacting with a much broader set of participants. So it was about sales, it's about technology, it is about marketing, it's about customers. So all that. Kind of expanded the boundary. And then when I transitioned to my recent role as an investor, I think I extended the scope of design to not only the various functions of the business, but also to the a larger investment community. So I believe in my journey, I have tried to look at going beyond just the design and interacting, collaborating with different functions and different entities. And that's a very similar philosophy, I believe, that is followed in the speculative practice. And I'm just trying to connect the topic that we have to my personal experience. So if you look at the whole speculative practice, and I don't want to call it design because I believe it goes beyond design. So when you look at a problem and think of various scenarios of how your products will be impacted in future, you'll come up with a range of ideas. They could be from possible to probable to preferable to plausible, and you need to pick up the right ideas, the right scenarios that will question the basic premise. I think the whole core of speculative design is not to come up with any solution, or not to come up with any any product or any service, but the idea is to kind of generate debate, to provoke some thinking around this. I believe speculative design or speculative practice derives its ideas from filmmaking, literature, music, art. I think there's a lot of things that we can take on how, let's say, simple thing like filmmaking that we have seen. It's a very open-ended philosophy, in the sense you can come up with an idea, and once it's debated, once it's discussed, and it can depend on personal interpretation of what that idea is. I believe this model can allow you to go beyond what you typically look at. Most of your time or most of your energy is focused on saying, okay, who is my user, who is my customer, what is my market, what is my. I think it's important to go beyond that, to look at society, environment, regulations, governments, etc. And I believe that's the core of this whole speculative practice, or the speculative possibilities. Also, I don't want to confuse this speculative practice to what is currently happening, because I believe the current situation might just go, but the whole philosophy with which people have started looking at this will stay. There'll be a lot of interesting possibilities that could come out as people or designers start thinking, or as designers start walking on this path. Moving on, I want to just talk about how do you compare this with your traditional or your speculative design. I believe most of our work today is focused on what is here and now, and we've been far more and many times looked at very superficial design that have not lasted for more than few years. But how can we create something? How can we extend the ecosystem create an idealistic or a very futuristic scenario. Also spur debate, challenge status quo, um, uh, come up with some really pertinent and pragmatic questions. Um, I think these are some of the critical goals or critical differences between a traditional versus a speculative design. Um, Many designers ask me whether organizations will accept this, whether people will be okay with some of this. Now, what happens that whenever I look at a business, and I believe business is hungry for something like this. Most of the business are very wary about what is going to happen in future, and especially because of the current scenario, they're very concerned about what's going to, whether their business are going to. I mean, if you look at airlines, if you look at restaurants, if you look at hotels, everyone is very worried about what's happening and going to happen in the future. Now, typical model is that okay, you go to a consulting company like a McKinsey or Accenture. And then ask them for saying, okay, hey, do some crystal gazing and come back to us. However, I've not seen companies come to designers for crystal gazing. So I believe there is an opportunity for us to come up with solutions, or come up with offerings to address that problem. So there are a lot of aspects of storytelling, or the aspect of fictional films, which we have not used very rigorously in past. I believe each and every designer needs to pick up some of these skill sets and try and see how you can create a future. And I'm sure organizations and the CXOs will be very happy to embrace designers into that role. Because like everyone, they're also very worried about what's going to happen in future, and the crystal gazing is going to become very critical. Now, let me talk very briefly about the skill sets that are required for doing this transition, or for doing this course correction. I believe one of the most important skill set that designers will need to acquire, or designers need to sharpen, is this whole critical thinking. We have in past used things like observation, interpretation, reflection, inferencing, analytical thinking, but I believe we've still sort of stayed at a very surface level on that. Critical thinking, critical design thinking is going to become one of the most important skill sets for us to take center stage and to imagine the future. Of course, this whole aspect of collaboration, and in past, we have, we've kind of remained very isolated. We have stayed away from working with people who are left brain thinkers. We've enjoyed all the right brain thinkers in organization, but I feel that like a filmmaker or a fictional writer, one needs to cross the spectrum and build range of scenarios. So it's all about collaborating with different skill sets, different people, and come up with a range of possibilities. I believe storytelling is going to become very critical. And in fact, in my opinion, imagining or coming up with a fictional stories of future will become one of the key skill set for most of the designers.
So Shashank,
also
so Shashank, if I may interrupt you here a little quickly, like just one very high level question here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say this critical thinking is very much the kind of job thinking that every designer would, let's say, might be go through, or they are learning. A designer might assuming they are always into the learning and thinking process. But how about that, finding that time frame while doing our projects every day, and versus how this organization responsibility, or the maybe how to ask that, okay, how this thinking should be hit the road, like really we can envision in our everyday products sort of thing. So any take on that?
So if I understand right, in a day-to-day thinking, how do you do critical design thinking? So
yes.
I would say that it's not. It's important so let's say I'm looking at an organization, and you have a set of designers or a design team. I believe that of course, there are some people who are going to be required for doing things which are here and now. But of course, there is going to be some set of designers who are going to look at future. I think for them, it's going to be very critical to acquire some of these skill sets, to use the tools that are required. However, I think large part of work will still remain to be saying, okay, hey, we need to address something which is the near future and the immediate future, right? Okay. But I believe that there are going to be certain designers who need to focus on this. I think if everyone starts focusing on this, I think it's going to be not a desirable thing. So there are things, there are businesses to be run, and there are things to be done. So I believe it's a part of the team that needs to focus on this and that needs to get into that mode of thinking. Okay. In terms of just imagining or visualizing that future, I think we need to pick up a lot of multidimensional, multisensorial communication of scenarios and ideas. And here I'm taking a lot of inspiration from what films have done. So if you look at Matrix, or if you look at the whole Marvel series, I think there's a lot of future crystal gazing that has happened, which allows us to imagine our future. And whether this is good or bad, I think that's a choice. But at least there is a debate and discussion that's happening. And of course, we need to be very, very empathetic to the society, environment, regulatory frameworks, and not just users and consumers. So these are some of the very, very critical skills and tools that will be required. Now, I want to end with a note. So if you look at some of these companies, if you look at Airbnb, Pinterest, Kickstarter, and there are multiple of them, what is common in these companies? And let me quickly put that. All these companies have designers at the helm of things, and they have envisioned a new, completely new future. They imagined something that was, in 2008, Airbnb imagined that, they could create a completely new business or new opportunity for people to enjoy or to experience something that they have not done in different place in a different time. Similarly, Pinterest or Kickstarter or Behance, I think have gone through, and all this has been done by designers. So it's not impossible that you as a designer can contribute to something which is here and now, and as well contribute to the larger range of possibilities. And that, I think, is what the message that I want to give. I would like to pause here, and Karna, I'll hand it over to you. We'll take questions, comments if there are any towards the end of it.
Yeah, I think we'll take a question definitely at the end, but just to keep it very just ongoing. So it's amazing talk. Shashank, thanks a lot for letting us know and give us an understanding on the very, very, very basics. I would say that how the speculative design is, what is this thinking, and how we should, keep evolving every day and so forth. So it's amazing to, it's a great kickoff of what subject we picked up. And there is, I am sure, must be a lot of questions around the examples or executions, but that will take it later on at the end of the day, end of the session. Sorry. So, okay, thanks a lot, Shashank, again, and hello, Apala.
Hey, hi.
So, I think, Apala, to begin with, a very small question is definitely you are thoroughly researching on the what is new normal and all that. I guess. So because I'm following you, of course. So I know that you are doing a lot of research in that. And on the other side of world, in fact, when we are talking to the some of our US team and folks and clients as well, people are somewhere frustrated. What is new normal? It is normal only. Why you are redefining and all that, right? So they are misinterpreted that, okay, I think new normal is something we are accepting something sad, which is not true, I'm sure, right? So please guide us through that, how to define new normal in a speculative way.
Yeah, okay, sure. Happy to. And I just want to say that I don't have slides. I'm going to just talk.
That's amazing.
And, the fact that it is going to be different, everything is going to be different, is just the way that we are all connecting nowadays. There's good and bad in that, but it's so different from earlier when we really didn't have all these occasions virtually to connect. While the channels were always there, but they were more formal occasions when we connected via virtual channels, other than, of course, within our own companies. And that itself is an indicator, a signal of, as a futurist would say, a signal of something that's going to change. But and I see somebody saying Black Mirror. Yes, absolutely. also speculative, sort of fiction, and partly, something that has warned us of where we are right now. So I would really like to start with a quote that's from a very favorite science fiction writer. But the interesting thing is, I see this quote flying around a lot nowadays, and you'll know why it's so relevant. So it's by William Gibson, and the quote is, "The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed." He said this decades ago. And isn't it very interesting that that's absolutely right? The situation we are in, this pandemic, this lockdown, this uncertainty, all of this situation was known for a long time to be imminent. I mean, maybe not this exact form of a pandemic, but the fact that our just wanton destruction of our planet is going to someday make Mother Nature want to teach us a really hard lesson. Enough and more was written about it for a long time. And yet, we always thought with varying degrees of concern that, it'll happen, but in a far away future. And well, the future is here. But the interesting thing is, it is certainly not evenly distributed. And, just the other day, I was listening to a NASCOM conversation that they were having with Thomas Friedman. And what he said is exactly this. He said, this pandemic, this experience, this virus manifests itself in very different ways. In the US, it's manifested itself as a double macchiato. In India, it's manifested itself as a decaf latte. So it is not evenly distributed. Some reasons we know why not, and some reasons we cannot comprehend. Having said that, no matter what flavor of the pandemic we are experiencing, depending on which country, and within the country, what sort of personal ecosystem we are in, but the cliche that things will never be the same again holds true. I believe this pandemic is just a trailer. It's a trailer to a really horrifying dystopian story that's called climate change. And if we don't wake up right now and reimagine our lives going forward, I don't know that we'll have the luxury to sit and exchange notes about the new normal like this in a few years. But what will this new normal be? And that is something many of us have been looking at, and we've been hearing a lot, because so much is being said, right, about the new normal from all kinds of sort of how will our relationships with each other change, how will we work differently, how will we eat differently, invest differently, etc. What I want to talk about is there are three things that I feel are going to impact the way designers will need to think about designing experiences going forward. The first of these three is the way designers look at needs. When we do the design process, we look at the needs of the people we are designing for. That is completely going to change, because I personally believe that the age of, sort of rugged individualism is over. We're done with that. This pandemic, if nothing else, has shown us very definitively that we are not really independent as we thought, living in our glass houses, literally and metaphorically, but that we are actually very, very interdependent. If as a collective, as a neighborhood, as a community, as the entire planet, we don't thrive, we can't thrive by ourselves, for long in some self-isolated bubble. That is very, very clear. You see the fault lines, in every country, in so many countries, if not every country. It's like a mirror thrust in our faces, and a mirror cracked, where we see that basic needs of different groups is not taken care of. Does it mean that when that happens, only some groups are suffering and nobody else? No, ultimately that entire ecosystem is suffering. You know, again, with all these amazing Zoom sessions, very recently I was listening to a very famous author, Fatima Bhutto. She was doing a book reading session on Zoom, and she said something that really struck me and about this point. She said, and she was referring to maybe a specific country. She said the stark reality that is suddenly in our face is that will our zip codes, will our PIN codes decide whether we will live or die? So in this new normal, we are going to wake up and say, hey, it's not just about my need. It's not about my need to progress and to buy the new cell phone, etc. But we've learned that it is about everybody's need that we also have to look at. So I think as designers, we are going to now look at how our design processes will perhaps be more cognizant and more present to understanding the collective. In addition, of course, the individual needs, which we do all the time. So it's not going to be just about you design the sum of individual needs. You know, you do research with a number of participants and you generalize based on that, but they're still individual needs. Now we're looking at the common good. We are going to do a lot of that. And you know, the interesting thing is, as I was researching sort of collective need and how do you find that, so many cultures have had that in the past. So I think we'll have to now again go back and draw upon sort of, you know, ancient wisdom, such as in Africa, it's Ubuntu. I am because we are. Or in India, it's Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. These you know, these ways of looking at the world have been there, but we've just somehow become rather blinkered. We're going to go back to that. That I feel very strongly is going to happen. So that's one. Then I believe the second change in the new normal is that there'll be a shift in values. And the two values that are coming up that you know, sort of come to me a lot as will shift is, one is about resurgence of the local, and the other is an appreciation of the Japanese worldview of wabi-sabi. What are these two? In short, when I say resurgence, I'm kind of referring to what has already begun, and we are all experiencing that, isn't it? That it is our local communities, the businesses in our neighborhoods, which have been resilient, which have been able to support us. And so we are supporting them, and I believe we will continue to support our local ecosystem of business. We will also, you know, I was reading that in April, the demand for direct sourcing of vegetables and fruits by consumers from farms, directly from farms, it's increased exponentially, mostly in the Western world, but also in some parts of Asia. These are all, I take these as signals to say this is going to stay. You know, we have sort of suddenly realized that there is a need to build more resilient supply chains. It doesn't mean that the global supply chains will go away, no, but we will now put more attention on our local communities and our local businesses. That's, you know, that's one. And when I say wabi-sabi, what I mean is that suddenly, I think because we've had to hit the pause button in our lives, and it's giving us a lot of time to reflect, I think we are realizing to some degree about the pointlessness of only running after this sort of this mirage or the search of a perfect life. That turns out to be just a packaging with a lot of very momentary material experiences. I think we are realizing that, and we are realizing and accepting that life is imperfect. It is incomplete and it's impermanent. And that is what wabi-sabi is. So we will now, going forward, I think, be more open to accepting imperfection, authenticity, vulnerability than ever before. And we will look also inwards for evolving and not just look at outwards for material elements and experiences for evolution. So I think that will, these two values also bring about a lot of change in how large global brands will look at offerings, experiences, and then how designers will then have to shift. I don't think I believe quite the extreme sort of futurist speculation that I'm hearing from some places that big corporate brands, it's the end of large, global brands. I don't believe that, but I think they'll have to morph into sort of several local ways of working more than it has been before. And we will therefore connect with what we feel is more authentic to us and not some aspirational, perfect image that is global. So it's going to change. And finally, the last thing that I think is going to change is that in the new normal, I think we'll move away from just valuing return on investment. And we will start also valuing return on happiness, because we have seen that return on investment can sometimes be on very shaky ground. And in times of crisis like this, it doesn't always help. So how do you build experiences that also provide return on happiness? Because I think our users are going to look at products, services, and experiences thereof with that lens too. And so all the work, that has been done for so many years, like the World Happiness Surveys, the index of the happiest countries, etc., the concept of gross national happiness that really emerged from Bhutan. I think these will now not be just far away, like a report one reads, a concept that one sees somewhere in some presentation. I think they will suddenly enter our lives, our daily lives. And we all, in our various, the various hats we wear, the experiences we expect from our governments, from our employers, from brands, will be majorly also measured by us in terms of how much return on happiness. And I see that with some of our state governments, they are focusing a lot in this time to provide a perspective about happiness in the midst of this crisis. And I think those particular regional or state or union territory governments are doing really interesting work in this. And I think that is going to also become part of the new normal. So with that, I shall end my piece, my perspective on the most important things that I feel will define the new normal.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Abala. I think majority points are making a lot of sense for sure. So it's not about that new normal is going to be, that's the perception that it's going to be worse, like everywhere, mask, wall, glass, and etc. And people are really hesitate that, okay, we would be, isolated we would be not happy and sort of like a lot of memes also I was seeing that, okay, restaurants will be having a lot of cabin culture. So office is also having like, 2 feet, 3 feet distance cabin culture. And one of the even wearable I saw that nose wearable as mask. So 3D printed nose wearable kind of a new mask and all that. But I think apart from that, what you are saying is like, let's say people will, redefine their happiness, the value, realistic value. What is the value of staying with family? It's everybody now realize, right? As you are saying that it is about more, heating back to culture. It's not about, going into the more of a virtual world or something like that. In fact, one of the series I was watching called Upload. So in that, the person is giving money in a virtual world to get snore, because life is all about imperfection. It's not about having, like, as you very rightly said, it's not about like global perfection and sort of thing. And the very strong point which you are putting is that farm to house, like a lot of in fact in restaurant chain culture already they are saying that farm to fork, right? Kind of culture is already there, that restaurant is putting this thing as an advertising. You must have seen that, okay, that cage free chicken in many of the time. But that is something more healthy. We are going into the right version, we are going on right path. And I think again would like to say thanks a lot for bringing all this point. And this the next our speaker Anil Reddy is also having the very similar thought that this is more about not about globalization, but localization, frugal innovation sort of thing. So how we can reflect our own society, our own area. Likewise, you said it's not about that which phone I can buy, but it is about how my area, my zip code is, giving me something back, sort of thing. So I think, Anil, it's amazing time that you could jump in to this and give us some understanding around frugal innovation. What is the
Yeah,
scope
thanks.
and
Yeah,
opportunity?
thanks, Karna and Apala. That was wonderful. The wabi sabi way of living life, right? It's something that everyone should look into it. What a coincidence. Today morning for breakfast, my wife had a very strange looking round shaped sweet for us. It was brown in color, it had ghee and it had jaggery in it, and we all loved it. And we finished it within a fraction of a second. We finished it. So it was nothing but yesterday's leftover roti. So she turned the roti into a laddu and she presented, and we finished it. So yesterday roti was very difficult to eat, but look at the innovation, right? So these kind of innovation is everywhere. So when I started Lollipop, I came back to India, which is kind of a very flooded market, and I have no clue about sales. I didn't know how to do sales. So I thought sales was going to be easy. Just pick a book or read articles or watch videos of some great people who was advising about how to do effective sales and stuff. I finished all that for a week, and after that, I took all that knowledge to put it in practice. I went out in the field to do sales, and I literally failed. I couldn't even sell one single project. So I came back and I was thinking, like, what is that I should do, or should I bring in a new innovation or something that will work in India? It was very simple. There was 13 years of knowledge that I carried, and then I realized that instead of doing sales, I should rather go out and educate people about the design first approach. So because back in 2011, we all spoke about design, but the small to medium companies had no clue about what was the impact of design to their organization. So instead of doing sales, I started spreading the awareness of design, and I started speaking about what design can bring to your organization. Then I saw that it was a good seed that I had put, and I was kind of watering it every now and then, like educating people about it. And within 6 months, I stopped doing sales. Rather, we started getting a lot of projects in, and people were very curious to find out what is this design and what impact does it bring. So like that, right now, the term innovation, people think innovation happens only at NASA or some big scientist in a lab sitting there and doing some crazy innovations, or we should wait for some book or some senior people to come and tell us about what innovation is. I think innovation is very, very simple. The approach that I took for sales, right? It didn't require any investment. While people were suggesting that when you start your organization, you should invest in SCM, SEO, digital marketing, and all that nonsense, but I didn't want to invest. I knew that had a very short mileage, and that wouldn't really build a brand like Lollipop. So I thought of what is that I have within, so that I can bring it out and I can start innovating. Like every session that I did, there was something different in it. So within my knowledge, I started innovating. Like that, I think we have many examples here, like Mr. Prabjat, I think, I don't remember his name. I saw his video on YouTube. He built a fridge using clay. What an amazing idea. So affordable fridge, which doesn't require electricity. And he built a small fridge where people could buy it in a very nominal cost, and they can store their vegetables and fruits, and they can have it for a long time. Works exactly like a fridge. And similarly, like if you go somewhere, I read about people in Africa, if you run out of battery in your mobile, they use your cycle, right, to charge the battery. And it's the same thing. That in olden days, we used to have the lights in front of the cycle, right? That was a dynamo light. So they use the same thing to charge their battery. Amazing idea, right? So you don't need like educated engineers to come and do all this stuff. Simple ideas. And somewhere in South America, I think, in Peru, yeah. In Peru, there was this particular place where it was full dry, no water, humid and stuff. And the students came together and built a big building where they humid air and turned that into a water, and they purified it, and they served water across. What amazing idea, right? I think innovation is everywhere. And if you look at, right, it is not limited to educated or even only the scientists. There's so many innovations. And now coming to frugal innovation and today's situation, right? we all are going through tough times, and there's so much learning out of this. And I think post this, we're going to come out so well that we will start respecting everything around us. Like if you look at it, when the first week of this lockdown, right, I panicked like anyone. I was like, what is going to happen if a corona hits our family, or what is going to happen to the business? And there's a lot of questions running in our head. So after 1 week, I was like sitting back and thinking, like, why are only doctors, nurses, and government service people are fighting this for us, and we are so locked up in the house, we are very safe, and there are so many lives out there fighting for us. So we have engineers, we have designers, where we all can come together and contribute, right? We don't have to be on the street to go and fight this. We all can contribute to this. So as a designer, I was thinking, like, what is that we can do? In Canada, they have started an association where they're bringing all the designers and engineers together to innovate with existing knowledge and existing materials. So one of the ideas they came up with, how to build a walk-in medical test, which is great, right? Which is amazing. I think that's what we need here in India. Why should we have people testing people? While in the past, we had engineers and designers, they shrunk the entire bank and they turned it into ATM. Today, we just walk in without any human help. We withdraw money, we go out. So I think it's time. I think we should think we should bring all the designers together, engineers together, and see how we can make this kind of walk-in medical test. You just walk in. I'm just throwing ideas. It's like any designer, right? We have 1,000 ideas running in our mind. Every day you wake up, you see something, and like, I can turn this into something. So why don't we walk in, or do a walk-in medical test kind of a thing? And I'm sitting in the space, and right in front of my apartment there is this huge apartment complex which gone into litigation, and it's been like this for the last 6 years. So the total number of flats here is 500, and each flat is 3 bed. Why don't we turn this into some sort of a temporary hospital to treat patients, right? Why should only hospitals treat patients? We have seen great examples in Germany where the new airport was turned into an hospital. Amazing, right? You don't need like great minds to come together to do this. It's a simple stuff. Airport turned into hospital. Simple. So we have so much real estate space here, wasted real estate space. I think we know we are all celebrating. I hear from media that we are all celebrating that we are out of corona. We're not out of corona. We're just started, and it's just started here. It's going to spread. So I think the entire community has to come together and look at frugal innovations, simple stuff. Look at real estate. Look at the materials that can be used to fight this. And I think this is what I think day in and out. And again, going back to in 2011, the kind of things that I used to do for sales, right? I'm bringing the same practice now. So now sitting at home, doing sales is so difficult. So I'm thinking that what is that I can do? So now I went back and I was writing down points about what is that I can do to bring business into Lollipop. So the same thing, I started educating clients about whether it is the right time to take a design first approach or not. I'm being very honest with our clients, saying that, hey, they ask me questions about, I think it's the time for us to build mobile applications and people are going digital. And instead of telling them, yes, go ahead, we'll help you and turn that into a business, right? We're being very honest, and we're telling them, we're advising them whether it is the right time for take a design first approach, or should they wait, should they build all the digital touch points or no. So I think today's morning lesson and the laddu has, there's an ad about Manme Laddu Kuda, something like that, right? I think that is opened up my mind, and today whole day I'm going to think of what is that we can innovate and make this world a better place. So to end my topic, right, this frugal innovation in local language is called jugaad. As simple as this. So what we should do is we should look into ethical jugaad. Simple. So that is frugal innovation. Thank you.
Fantastic, Anil. So in fact, that my co-host is very much like, he's from Lucknow, and he's always being, I think, since we are working together in Claris, and since Claris time, he's working from Lucknow, right? And he's very much fan of this jugaad. So And like when we started this as well, so when we are like going through some of the documentation, the DAC question subject, then he was like, what about this one subject line? We literally written this line in bracket as jugaad, that this can be converted into jugaad, this is nothing else. And I think our whole this Mangal mission or movie, something what you are saying, right? So innovation is not about NASA is also getting innovation from someone's home,
Yes.
right? So it's like that how कुछ तो भी like frying puri or something, they bring it into the, like how that orbit rounds can be converted into fuel efficiency throughout analogy of our frying puri intel, right? So that's amazing. That's where I think very strongly what you are saying, it's definitely, it's all about more about local coming within and our everyday practices and mindset, of course. So I think we had a few questions as well, but let's take it towards the end. So it would be more interactive session at the end, so we all know your everyone's perspective on that common ground as well. So that would be amazing. And I think now the parameters looks like that. Okay, Shashank give us a good understanding, a kickoff. Then Apala give us good, amazing research around. You talk more about innovations, that okay, after research you do the innovation and stuff. But now it's about hitting the ground, reality, how that team going to work, right? And I think Karthik is going to guide us in that forum. So Karthik, we are looking up to that, as you are saying that in Mobi, it's a very versatile team out there, which is like, product versus some of the advertise and enterprise stuff. And you have a fair, large team, and you guys are hitting practice, this work from home remote practice as well so far. So yeah, we're looking forward to productivity, efficiency and good collaboration though, which is engaging.
Yep. Thank you, Karna. And thanks, Anil. It was amazing to hear you, and especially kind of made a note of that ethical jugaad terminology. It sounded very, very sweet. And in fact, like one of my team member had actually sent a WhatsApp image yesterday, and the image was about a Uber driver who had kind of wrapped himself around a thin polythene sheet kind of a cover inside the car. And it is a separation between his cabin versus the rest of the passengers. So it's kind of it's a typical ethical guard kind of an example, which I kind of got remembered.
Amazing.
Yeah. So let me quickly share my screen.
Yep. Yep, we can see your dashboard.
Cool. Okay. So we've been talking about this COVID-19 and been like it's all over the place, like on all mediums. So that's been like the only kind of topic of discussion for everyone and for everyone at home and office. And so that's been the new normal so far. I just wanted to kind of spend some time on what is this new normal is really looking like, right? Because sitting in front of laptops and then kind of continuing to work remotely and support office work, probably like things have slightly changed, but still I think like many still don't understand what is the real impact that this has actually caused in a matter of like couple of quarters, right? So I just wanted to kind of share some perspective on what is this new normal is actually looking like, and the reality, and how kind of it has changed us and brought in a significant change in the way we kind of work. Right? So which is about the remote working, which has actually become one of the world's largest home experiment, which kind of started in the recent time, and it looks like it is running successfully. People are able to kind of cope up with that, and kind of still able to keep the lights on, supporting their core work right from their home with whatever technology and infrastructure they have at home. And the last few minutes, I just wanted to kind of share a few pointers around like how we've kind of adopted to this new way of working and how it's been kind of useful, how we were able to kind of cope up and still able to deliver on to the business needs, which is also like going through a lot of stress because of this new challenge which is impacting overall across the globe. Right? So let me quickly jump into the COVID-19 challenges. So um, uh, we've been kind of uh, tracking the day-to-day rise in the number of cases and how many people are kind of recovered and how many countries are kind of coming out of this, or how many countries it is kind of hit the peak and all of that, right? So one way kind of it still kind of feels like it is slightly panic kind of a situation. On the other side, just looking at how the future could be, right? This is the slide in front of you is actually an interesting uh, take from McKinsey, who had kind of just tried to figure out like what could be the situations and what are the combinations of the current situation could be and where it kind of leads to. Right? So on one axis, we get to see what is the intensity of the virus spread and what is how our public health systems are responding to it. On the other axis, we could see the what is our economic policy interventions and what is and how it is kind of impacting and help us to kind of come out of this situation. Right? So if we look at the bottom most leftmost quadrant, right? So which is the extreme where like things have kind of completely gone out of control. It is a pandemic escalation, and also the economic policies or whatever measures that the government had taken as is proven like ineffective, which means like it is in a state of a prolonged downturn, which is on an extreme case. Right? Whereas on the extreme top right, which is the A4 quadrant, where if the government has taken proper stringent measures to control the spread of this virus, and all their measures have been like proven effective, right? And also their economic policy to kind of revive the economy and all of that is also kind of working out really well. It means the virus is contained and there is a strong growth rebound that's kind of expected. So these are two extremes. So if we kind of see things like slightly on a more median level, right? So we what actually we want to kind of focus here is the quadrants of A3 and A1. So where it is the situation is where the virus is kind of contained, but the economic policies and the impact is not completely effective, but there are still challenges to be kind of faced, and hence we can expect a slow recovery. Whereas the A1 quadrant, where the situation is slightly worse, where there is a situations of virus resurgence, which is actually being seen in countries like China and Singapore, and also the economic policy interventions are also like not kind of leading to immediate fruitful results. So what is this situation looks like? So if we just take these two combinations of scenarios, right, A3 and A1, just wanted to kind of show this perspective on how it kind of compares with the rest of the global impacting situations we have had in the past, right? So so the trough that we see on the towards the 1940 1950 times, which is the World War times, and the one that we see in around 2008 times, right? So those are the down the GDP kind of hitting a slow pace during those times, right? So what we see onto the extreme right is like the scenarios of how the economy could be impacted, right? So if the situation is, let's say, the virus is contained and also the economic policies are kind of getting the entire economies back in action, right? So the good state might be like still it will be like -8% of degrowth in the overall GDP. If things have kind of worsened, let's say if it is scenario A1, it is going to go till like minus 13%. Right? So which means like the impact is almost close to 2.5x of what the world has seen around 2008, the global financial crisis. So it is definitely like almost 2x. So that is the kind of impact this COVID has actually created. Just a quick overview on like if you just ignore the column 1 and 2 and just look at the third column, right? Time to return to the pre-crisis, just to bring us back to the let's say Q4 2019 state, how the economy was like during the Q4 2019 state. If we have to kind of see what time it is going to take for us to come to that, at least for India, it is going to take at least a year and a half from now, easily to kind of get to that state. If we kind of taken very stringent measures and kind of our economic policies are like kind of working very well, and then we were able to kind of bounce back strongly. So even then, it is going to be like a 1.5 years of this impact that is going to be felt. So again, go to look at the scenario which is A1, where it is a lot more challenging, where the virus is not contained on time and it is having a lot more impact. This looks like even pretty kind of deepen crisis, where it is easily like 2.5 years from now. Like that is the prolonged duration this is going to kind of continue. The reason I wanted to kind of show this is like this new normal is going to stay with us for some more time. It is not going to kind of end soon, as soon as the lockdowns are lifted or something, right? So we will have to kind of adapt to this, and we will have to kind of come up with ways to kind of cope up this situation, and then like and work towards coming out of this strongly. And that period is going to be not anytime lesser than 1.5 years from now. So having said all of this, right? So what this COVID-19 has actually created is actually this has created this has become a agent for a big change, which is perceived globally, which is like the working from home and working remotely, right? So this has become the world's largest experiment of like work from home, which is kind of started probably like 6 weeks or 8 weeks from now. So let's kind of spend some time on what is this remote working and what is this new normal. What are the key aspects of this new normal, right? So we've been kind of used to hearing things like there is one person in the team who has taken work from home for 1 day in a week, or probably he's working remotely for a couple of days, and the rest of the team is actually at work and they are kind of able to connect with that person. So that is used to be the case, right? Where the work from home is used to be a privilege, but it is not. It's going to be a privilege any longer, because it has forced everyone to kind of stay isolated, stay at home, and this has become the necessity now. And we are actually need to develop new muscles of building our ability to kind of work virtually, shifting to emails and IMs and Zoom calls to kind of make sure we are able to run the business as usual. Another important aspect is like the end of business travel. With a complete kind of shutdown of travel over the last 3 months, right? So the business also kind of swiftly realizing that the business travels are actually like not all of that is like kind of necessary. There are a major chunk of those travels can be avoided. So that is the biggest learning that every business across the world has kind of realized, and that has become their number one kind of in the list if for them to kind of cut cost. The another important aspect is like with everyone moving to their home and working remotely with nobody at office, like what is this office is going to look like post COVID, right? So people call it as like the office is going to look like an ultimate status symbol, where it is not going to be the regular office space any longer, right? So we can actually start seeing more of let's say people gathering only for key important company-wide events, where it is not for coming there to work, but it is only for some important events. and the cubicles are not in the same place anymore, and like people are kind of preferring more of a privacy cabins over open offices, and a lot of technology around like contactless fixtures, in fact there's this a famous personality, right, who is a part of the US government coronavirus task force, Dr. Anthony Fauci. He was actually mentioning that when people in US get back to work, and so they will probably they are looking at a possibility of asking for a immunity certificate from employees if they are kind of eligible to kind of step into office of sort. Like those are the kind of things the governments are also kind of looking. So that is what this new normal is kind of looking like. The good part of all of this is like the workplace is now become like more equitable for women. Because like in the earlier days, like in the pre-COVID situations, women especially who wanted to kind of take a sabbatical, take a maternity leave and all of that, because they are not able to kind of work, handle both work and their home life. Now there is a lot more possibility, which means like this long-term flexibility is here to stay, and which also allows like women to kind of continue their work without much of a hassle. And the last interesting part is like we can see new trends which will kind of emerge, or which is already emerging because of this new remote working, right? So which is like a work from home kind of an office where as a fashion trend, or like our ability to kind of be very keen to listening and making eye contact, because we are no longer going to shake hands with people even post COVID. Like even when we step into office, at our gestures to welcome someone, or our gestures to kind of show acceptance, and all of that is going to be like it's pretty much on the like smiling or eye contact. So it's these are like something like that is going to become like common post COVID. Right? So having said that, like this is the new normal. What are the challenges with the remote working, right? Because this is all new for all of us, to kind of completely work 100% of our time, right? Where there is hardly any difference between what is the home time versus the work time, right? So these are some things that we are kind of getting used to very very recently, and it comes with its own set of challenges. So the major challenge is like the communication, right? So there was a remote work report that was created by this organization called Use FYI. In their report for remote work, like they kind of called out what are all the key challenges. So the topping the list of challenges was the communication, right? So because everybody has their own personal time and all of that, no longer like we can actually we can actually call for some random meetings at random point in time. People have to be like more purposeful, more planned in their communication and respect others time here. And another second important challenge is like there is few opportunities to socialize with colleagues. All those having chit chats with colleagues at work during tea breaks and like coffee breaks, having those water cooler conversations, or probably like after work drinks and parties, like those things are like kind of it's not existent, or it is not happening, at least for some time from now. With socializing is completely kind of ruled out with office colleagues, right? People are kind of getting into the mode of isolation and not having an opportunity to socialize, means like because they are also kind of in the same space every day in day out. They don't know what is the work time, home time. Those 9 to 5 timings aren't kind of working anymore. The people are in front of the systems, like always on calls, and so this has got another depressing effect on people as well. And one other major last an important challenge that I wanted to kind of touch upon is the people's need to be visible, stay visible in their team and in their org, right? So uh, because those in-person meetings are not happening, you're not getting to see your colleagues or probably your manager in person, where you can just walk over the desk and have a quick chat and all of this, right? So that visibility itself is like kind of dwindling. So and hence it is very much required that every one of us actually take a lot of effort in order to kind of stay visible, keep communicating like what is that we kind of plan for the day, what is that we kind of deliver, like how and when, like it is okay to kind of be over communicative, which is very important in order to kind of increase the visibility in the org and in the
That's
team.
absolutely Karthik.
Yeah.
Indeed. So
Yeah, correct.
era of over communication for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we had amazing talk and lot of questions out there. So let's make this session more interactive and make it like giving some chance to participations. And I think what happening is that anyway, Vaibhav Bakshi, my co-host, is like sorting down all the questions, and he'll go through those questions. But one personal question, like I had, that, very generally when even we started thinking around and when we are doing this practice in design. So when we started, the very first point is definitely how we can give back something to our society, our environment. Like I was the very like very first person who would think, was this thing something, this kind of lockdown, plan lockdown we need every year, at least week once, like 1 week for sure, every year kind of thing. So how can and even though getting to the vegetables to some of the people, I'm living at Hinjwadi, and besides me there is like entire small villages there. We last year we also get a lot of flood here, so the school converted into the house. But these people is not getting the benefit which government is actually giving it, the policies which government is actually passing in, the environment control which a lot of government is putting effort, but everything government can't do. We have to change within ourselves. We have to start something from our end. So how we can embed as a one design community somewhere with the government possibilities, right? And really try to bring this change to a like complete grassroots reality. So how we can do that? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
please feel free to like let's give a just a very quick breakdown that Shashank, Kapala, Anil, and Karthik, you just like go ahead in sequence for a quick kind of perspective if possible. So that would be great.
I mean, my quick take on that is, I mean, so it's a very wicked problem. I mean, I don't think definitely falls into like a classic design problem. So it's far more because there are multiple levels, multiple layers, multiple agencies involved. So it's not like something that we can very quickly discuss. But in my opinion, it's a very wicked problem. And of course, somehow design principles can definitely help there. But it's not like in my opinion, it's not like a very straightforward answer. But I'll wait for others to chime in as well.
I think my take on this one is like how we have Minister for Health, Minister for Sports, and Minister for Information Technology. We need one for design.
That
I think
is
it's
Correct.
high time. I think it's high time that the government recognizes design, and the result of the design is very clear now. And we need a good minister who will enable and empower us.
right.
In fact, this point very nicely say, Anil, because there is one more like series nowadays. We are watching a lot of series. So there is one more series called Panchayat, like came in, and I was watching. It's very ground reality thing. It's you don't need real heavy technology. It's just required just to be there, to be awareness point of view. Not even no need to develop, but how to aware people about certain thing which is already out there, which is not there, right? So how we can go to that level. And that's what exactly when we are discussing internally, we are discussing the same thing, that how can we create one community somehow? I think you are the powerful people, so I'm putting across to you guys. How can we build that one community that really engage with thoroughly with any government chapters out there, some legal entity out there which is validating? Because as a creative thinkers we can bring a lot of engaging and rewarding valuable things on board for sure. But okay, sorry to
But
like
I
jump
think,
in.
Karna, I on one hand, I completely agree with Shashank that it's a wicked problem. So it's not a straightforward solution. In Pune itself, the Association of Designers of India, so they both in Bangalore and Pune, and I know certainly in Bangalore, they are working very much hand in hand with the Bangalore Municipal Corporation in the middle of COVID to look at what are the problems that as a design community they can probably help with respect, of course, in the early stages with masks and ventilators and all of that, but also migrant workers, mobilizing communities together to be able to share, help, spread awareness about how to deal with COVID for the migrant communities, to help bring word back to the municipal corporation saying this is the problem they're facing. I mean, if you say social distancing, it's not possible. So what else can be done? So there are examples in particular situations. I think some of the design associations are working hard. And I think it's very important to look at working with NGOs who do work till the last mile, do work with grassroots, populations, to see how designers can collaborate with NGOs to be able to take general awareness about environment, about rights that they have. The government has, probably benefits that are not being used by several, communities because they are not aware. I know that NID, and I'm sure many other design schools, but senior designers who have been embedded within local communities. And Lakshmi Murthy comes to mind. She's from NID, very senior designer. She chose to go into Rajasthan, into the local community, stay there, and she's created an incredible amount of awareness as well as change in thinking, as well as how do you deal with menstruation for women in rural communities. So, there are examples like that. And I think it's very important that we at least try to connect with design associations who are working, designers who are already running NGOs working on this sort of connection and awareness building.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So Bakshi, all up to you taking these questions, and please.
Yeah, thanks for the awesome session. Like there's a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So we can already see that in the audience that they have a lot of questions, and good that we have someone to answer them. So there's a question from most of the people that they're looking for a practical way to embed speculative design in the this thought process, speculative design thought process in the high impact outcomes. For specifically in this consulting environment. Like if we are a product company, we can definitely go for our own strategies. But when we are into consulting environment, it is heavily dependent on the customers, the client's business-driven dynamics. So how can we go ahead and sort of push or promote this strategy?
Okay. Maybe I can quickly talk about that, and then I'll let. So I believe that like I was saying, it's not like everyone should practice speculative design. I think there are some people who should focus on speculative design. However, I believe that speculative design is not something that has been very effectively communicated to the stakeholders. I think like Anil was saying that it needs to be, people need to be, organizations need to be educated, saying what is the value, what is the outcome that you can expect. So I can imagine that if you go to, let's say, a restaurant chain or maybe an airline or hotels right now and tell them, okay, hey, we can help you imagine the future. I think they'll be takers. It's just that it needs to be communicated. What is the value? What is the outcome? And most importantly, I think you need to build skills for that. Skills for that, I think I don't believe that they exist right now. So I personally feel that there is a tremendous opportunity to do this, especially in the current scenario, because businesses are very scared of future, what's going to happen. But it needs to be communicated well, and for that you need to build the skill sets in your organization. That's
Yeah, I agree with you, Shashank. Totally. The skill sets have to be built. Everybody probably does not have to practice
yeah.
right now. Also, I think speculative design and looking at preferred futures, if we start with the question, what is the problem we are solving, we kind of defeat the possibilities that emerge from speculative design. And one of the things that I have seen is, like you said, there are takers in business. So we've, working with clients, we looked at small steps of saying, hey, you are, on your site, it's all about all these loans that you give, etc. That's your business model, of course. But why not within that also say, not just car loan, but do you want a loan for an electric car? And say why an electric car is good. Give them a little bit of a lower rate of interest that you will charge. Why don't you say, hey, do you want a loan for working from home with the best home setup? We'll give you the entire kit. And what is the benefit of that? Why don't you work with large organizations and partner with them and say, hey, why don't you give this to your employees? There'll be 100,000 employees, maybe even 5,000 employees if the organization agrees. It's a win-win partnership. So I think little steps like that often help.
Absolutely. Right. So, would anyone else would like to add something to it, or should I move ahead? Okay. I think it's very well put. Like Shashank, I totally get the point, and Pala, what you've mentioned, and we will definitely look at that. Whoever is the taker, and at least we can try to convert and see what we can do ahead, and see what are the possibilities. But definitely, it will take some time to educate people around that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but there's another factor that comes into picture, that being speculative design, like it always talks about a probability of the future, and something which is a problem which is not yet present, but it can come up in future, right? So in such a situation, we don't really have a key user base or something. So how do you really understand the total worth of the solution that you design, or how do you basically test the concept that you do for the speculative design? How do you get that confidence that what you're doing is on the right direction? So
That's involved in investment as well. So,
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So how do we go ahead with that?
I think, according to me, design is a very iterative process. You can't design something today and say that it's going to work. This is going to work for the next few years.
Absolutely. Right.
So lately, I see that the designers are engaged on a retainer basis. So they want designers to be a part of the product or an organization. In the past, it used to be like our engagements were very short. They said, you come and design the interface and give it to us, and we will live with it for the few years. Things are changing. So now organization want designers to be a part of every discussion that happens inside. It could be business discussion, it could be marketing, or it could be tech discussion. So like I said, right, design today is right. It's strategy plus psychology plus technology and art. So an organization requires all this stuff to be very successful, and a product that you design today, it is not necessary it's going to be the same, and it will serve for every user in the future. So you need to keep an eye on it on daily basis and see what changes you need to make and how it can adapt to every situation. Like a good example is all the food delivery app, and suddenly during the COVID situation it didn't work.
Yeah.
And they had to put up banners to save themselves. Right. So they had to sell something to keep the business floating. So no designer was prepared for such situation, right? So you need to act immediately. So we serve one of the biggest food delivery brand in India. So we have to quickly act on it.
That's great.
So my quick take on this is, the philosophy is not to come up with a product or not to come up with a service. I think the idea is to come up with ideas, to provoke discussion, come up with some debate. So I don't know if we can test anything like that, but the idea is not to come up with any design. It's a mechanism to imagine the future and scenarios and see if there's something that that can be done differently, that can be done better. So it's about ideas and scenarios.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's why often the end result of speculative design is in the form of films, of speculative fiction, because it's to provoke, shift mindsets a bit. That's what it is meant to do, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are actually out of time now, but if everyone agrees, we can just take one last question if that's okay with the panel.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so right now, like there's a lot of thrust on local products and local ecosystems. So we are actually talking about very hyper local economies and hyper local ecosystem right now. So for a situation like this, how do we ensure as designers, as a community, there's a lot of responsibility that comes on us as individuals. So how do we ensure that we can bring some growth in that sector and give that push that it requires at the moment?
Well, there are lots of cases of designers taking it upon themselves to create quick, apps, websites for their local sort of stores, etc., who didn't have anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the skills we have, and the tools which allow us to quickly put simple digital presence together for these, our local communities is, I think, one of the simplest ways that we could help right now.
Right.
So the way we are addressing this is, like if you look at the designers out there looking for a job, right? Their portfolio is full of save tigers, climate change, or weather applications. So somewhere they've got inspiration from the Western portfolios. So the last week when I spoke to an university about how to build a powerful portfolio. So the topic that I gave was to design a Kirana store, or help someone in your community to come up with or digitize some of the things that you see on a daily basis. So I think for moving forward, we love to see portfolios like that. I think somewhere I personally am sick of seeing great, beautiful visuals, which is heavily inspired by Dribble and Behance, which is again about save tigers, and I think and also weather applications with the beautiful clouds moving in the background and all that. I think now I would love to see from the design community a portfolio where they're trying to solve the hyper local problem, and I think those are the kind of designers we need.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
I think it's designing for hyperlocals is actually a completely a paradigm shift in terms of how do we who are becoming our core target audience. And in fact, like this is going to be the next billion users. And they come with completely a different mindset and different set of a behavior, and no longer designers can actually approach the same problem with how they approach for a corporate kind of a thing, right? So they have to kind of be very frugal, very kind of simplistic in their approach, because these users are like not very tech savvy, right? So how do we kind of bring something very complex into their hands but still make them and empower them to kind of use those solutions in a most simplest way? I think that is going to be a real good challenge for designers to solve in the coming days.
So in Bangalore, they have eased down the entire lockdown thing. So I think it's time that associations start accepting local help. Carpenters can come in, plumbers can come in, and everyone can start resume their work. And now I think the digital touch points, right, and digital products can really help them to come back. So the problem is there is a big amount of fear in everyone that what if this carpenter or plumber is carrying coronavirus? So I think we can bring in some of the digital touch points to solve this and give the carpenter back his life.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
So I have
students should come forward to build such kind of solutions. And they always run out of ideas. They keep, and every social media account of mine, I keep receiving that what idea works, what should I work on my portfolio? There's so many ideas like this. I think designers should pick one or two topics like this and start working on it. You never know if someone is willing to build this and make it happen, they would turn into a big product.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Shashank, you were saying something.
Yeah, I have a slightly contrary viewpoint to this. I believe the hyperlocal is a myth. Or is sort of a wish list. I think we live in a globalized world, for whatever good or bad of it, and I think that will continue. So I think there'll be a massive push to globalization, and that those forces are unstoppable. I don't think. I mean, if you just take an example of this, we're using a Zoom, which is a global supply chain. We're using Mac laptops which are there. We are using phones which are there. So in any case, it's a hard to say that okay, we'll have very hyperlocal things. But and I think that's a key thing. I mean, we have to really coexist in this sort of a scenario where there could be some local pressures, there'll be some global supply chains. So, but in my opinion, everything will get increasingly globalized for good or bad.
Yeah.
So in Pune, there is very they started before COVID actually. A very nice application name they came up with, which is called Gully Buy.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something also like going. It's interesting, but it's amazing. It's actually helping the local people and all that. But likewise, yes, it's more about globalization. And the very last point, just to end up this session, like one very interesting question coming in: how, as a design community or as a designer, we can help this moment of made in India. Likewise, Anil also said, right? Rather than accepting Western culture, how we can showcase that what we already have ability. So how about like what is the designer responsibility moving forward?
I think stop copy pasting designs is the first thing. That would help a lot, everybody. So
Rightly
yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a make in India. I think it should be designed in India. I think that's more important.
Yeah. Yes.
That's superb.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The third keyword of the day. So, ethical jugaad.
I'll also add Wabi Sabi to it. So that's also
Ministry of Design.
Minister of Design.
Ministry of Design. And this one, design in India, for sure.
So I personally believe that design is too far long, even in isolation. So if you create a ministry for that, it'll get isolated. But anyway, that's a topic for some other debate maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
From local to global to local. Now we're somewhere like the rest of the answers are testing with time, so we will know very soon.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot for joining. It's amazing session. It's amazing talking to, and thanks a lot for giving your time. We'll try to see how we can, maybe create this thing into one day workshop of this thing, and would be amazing after this lockdown or something. But
absolutely,
really thoroughly, thanks a lot for this thing.
Thank you.
So
very
thanks,
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I've not got the opportunity to kind of interact with you, meet you, but I look forward to Apal. Of course,
we have to meet again because we haven't met for some time. And I look forward to meeting you both, Anil and Karthik. So yeah, very interesting.
So it's a virtual hug from all of us to all of you.
Yeah, virtual hug. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Kanna team for
just before we end, like these sessions are live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and we'll also be posting the summary as a blog post on yellowfirst.com website. So looking forward to see you there. Just keep the discussion on, and we'll connect again some other time.
Great.
Thanks.
Have a great weekend. Bye bye.
See you. Bye bye.